many of you know, he's a TEDx speaker. He's worked with Donald Trump and a lot of the really big names in personal development. He knows an awful lot about business and about what stops people from achieving what they need to achieve. And I think, Jeffrey, that you have a whole lineup for us tonight.
I do.
So I call that true health. True health, the emotions, the thoughts, the body software. And with that, our Jeffrey Van Dyke. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, hello, welcome. Great to see you guys here. And hello to the live streamers. We're streaming live for the first time from Santa Monica, California. So that's a lot of fun, and you guys are part of doing that. What? As Prudence said, we're at the Hall Center, and when I met Prudence, Dr. Hall, there was such this generosity of spirit in her that I was like, you know, in fact, I remember one time I tried introducing her to people as, this is Dr. Hall, and she's been on Oprah, and Dr. Phil, and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, we're not doing that. Hi, I'm Prudence. So it's really great being with somebody that's so accomplished and so humble, and really filled with service, because that's what we're both about. When I met Prudence, she said, you know, I want to bring more, a larger mission to the center around what true health is. And this path of fulfillment of, like, you know, she said, you know, I can get their body back up and running. I can get them to feel alive and vital and really good again. But then what, right? What are they going to do with that vitality? What are they going to do with their body back on path? And as we dove deeper, it was like, oh, we have a shared mission. You know, our real goal is to get people to really be of service in this world, to step into the contribution that they and only they can make. And having your body online is certainly a part of that. Understanding who those people are and what you're designed to do for them is another part of that. And then strategizing for global impact is yet another part of that. So tonight, I'm probably going to primarily going to be talking about how do you discover who those people are that you and only you can serve? And as you noticed probably before you came, tonight's theme is the X Factor. And I love this because I keep peeling layers out of my body of work, and these nuances keep showing up. And the one that showed up most recently is this special sauce. Like, each one of us has what I call an X factor, your special sauce, the thing that you can do that on some level nobody else can do quite like you, right? And when you find out what that is and discover why it's important to your market, you can then package it and market it. Hi, welcome.
Hi, sorry we're late.
No worries, welcome. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, is what is that special sauce that you have? And how does it apply to the people you serve, either as a leader or as an entrepreneur or a service-based professional? And given that, how do you package it and speak about it in a way that your right people go, oh, wow, you do that? You have that skill? That's amazing, right? I about a month ago, spoke to a room of 80, 100 leaders in my field. And I took them through a day-long workshop of my body of work. And I do a lot of live coaching, and we'll do some live coaching here tonight. I'm going to talk for 30 minutes or so, and then we're just going to coach. Because in my experience, I can talk all night, and that's fine and good. But the real experience, the juice, is in, like, how does it get applied to somebody's life? So whether you're the person in the hot seat tonight, or one of the people in the hot seat, or whether you're watching, we're really coaching as a room, right? We're doing it together, and I'll be guiding us all through this discovery process together. But I was in this room, and I took this room through my body of work. And my body of work is based on this idea, that your wounding, your greatest challenges in life have honed and shaped you in a very particular way. And what most people do around personal development is try to get rid of their wounding, try to get rid of the challenges they have with their personality, right? you're really critical with yourself or others, you're like, oh, I hate that critical part of me, I wish I could just get rid of it. Or if you're very perfectionist, your perfectionist wants to perfectly scrub out your perfectionist, right? And so we battle with each other, right, in a side of ourselves. And I don't really subscribe to that. One of the tenets of my philosophy is that there are no problems to be solved in ourselves or really in the world. There's just more truth to be revealed. And that all problems are a limited or fragmented expression of a larger whole complete truth that wants to emerge. And when we see a problem, when it presents itself, it's in the presentation of the problem that something is saying, hey, there's something more here for you to see. There's something greater that wants to emerge. And it is in the presentation of the problem that gets announced. So when I look at our core wounding, I'm not seeing a problem. I'm not trying to fix anything in anybody. I'm looking at it saying, it honed and it shaped you and it developed you like nobody else in the world. And if we can discover what that particular genius is that emerged from your challenges, what that is, who it most matters to in the world, and what the larger mission is that you can accomplish with the skills you've developed from your greatest challenges, well, then we can utilize the thing that most of us in the first half of life try to fight against. It's what I call serving from the gift of your wound rather than the pain of your wounding. And one other concept I want to just layer in here is there's something I call your wound's expiration date. So most of our wounding we're actually fairly unconscious to most of the time. It's like brakes, they just work until one day they start squeaking. And we're like, oh, my brakes aren't working anymore. I've got to go fix those. And so I believe that our operating system in our psyche, which is developed from our wounding, is much like that. It just works. And sometimes our motivations are, oftentimes our motivations are kind of wound-based motivations. They're reactive motivations. I don't want to feel that, so I'm going this way. But there's a point at which some of our behaviors and motivations start to run out of fuel, right? And it's like the way we used to do things doesn't work anymore. And no matter how many different ways we try to go around it, it still doesn't work. And that's usually when we start a deeper quest into what's really going on. How am I developing? What's the bigger picture of why I'm here? And it's what I call your wound's expiration date. That the useful service of it has served its purpose, and now you're onto something else. So let me give you just a few examples of this. If your dad said you're never going to amount to anything, and said this throughout, always kind of demeaned you and put you down, one reaction to that is to become highly driven and accomplished. It's a very common reaction to that. So maybe you become a CEO of a company of your own. Maybe you become a CEO of a Fortune 500 company or something else. But you drive and you drive and you drive, not really knowing that what you're doing is trying to prove that belief, you'll never amount to anything, wrong. But that's really what you're up to in the first half of life, right? You're driving and driving and driving. Because if you can get there, if you can I am the CEO of this huge company, now I have made it, right? And now I've proven that it's not true that I won't amount to anything. Because look, I've done it. Look, I've done it. Now here's what's interesting to me. I believe that whole path of the wounding and what you do in relationship to the wounding is purposeful. I believe that it hones and develops you in a really unique way, right? And that your unique wounding had a unique trajectory for your growth and development. One of the ways I like to describe it is like a slingshot, right? However you pull back that rock in the slingshot dictates where it's going to go. So if you pull it back, it's going to go forward. Back and down, it's going to go up and down. Back and to the left, it's going to go to the right, and vice versa, right? So however your wounding was for you, your reaction to it put you on a very particular development path. So great, so you learn all these skills and trying to maybe prove Dad that he's wrong, that you'll never amount to anything, right? And you grow and you develop yourself and you develop your capacities as a leader. But then something happens, especially when you make it. you look around and go, why don't I feel different? Why hasn't my world changed? I thought it would. Right? On some unconscious level, I thought that it would, and it hasn't. And now what do I do? And that's usually when I say you've reached your wound's expiration date, right? That it had a purpose in your growth and development. And that reactive fuel set you on a journey that is wholly unique to you. And there's a point at which the training program for your life's work is complete. And that's usually when that reactive fuel runs out of fuel, right? It's like if you wanted to put a spaceship into outer space, you give it enough fuel to leave our orbit, but you don't really give it more fuel than that, right? That would just be hugely wasteful, and it would actually weigh down the vehicle even more, making it more difficult to get it out of orbit. So you give it just enough fuel to get it to leave orbit, and then it runs out of fuel. Well, the same thing is true for our contribution in life. That in the first half of life, we have this reactive fuel, right? I'll prove them that I'm enough, that I'm worthy, that I can accomplish things, that I'm smart, that whatever it is. And then you get into orbit, right? You accomplish whatever it is, and suddenly that motivation isn't there anymore, and you don't know why. I can't tell you how many executives I've worked with who get to a certain place and they go, I just can't show up to work anymore. Right? I have 10 or 20 or 30,000 employees depending on me, but I don't really feel like going there anymore. And I don't know why, and those people are still depending on me, so that's a problem. What can you do to help? And that, to me, is usually when you have to answer this question of, why am I here? What am I meant to be doing? What is this larger contribution I'm meant to make in the world? And there's a lot of different ways to discover what that is. But one of the things that I found really unique is, bless you, is by looking at your wounding, right? If you wanted to say, what am I designed for? Wouldn't you look at the training and development program you went through? Like, if, let's say, you got an MBA and you're done and you're like, okay, now what? What am I designed for? And it's like, well, you got trained in business. Maybe you're meant to be working in business, right? Or if you went to school as an esthetician and you're like, what am I? Like, yeah, you're supposed to be giving facials now. That's what happens after you graduate from that program, right? So we have a program like that, right? And the program is our wounding and the reaction to our wounding. And so if we look back at that training program, we can decode what the training program was, what it was designed for, and who it designed us to serve in a way that only we can. So that's kind of the basis of this. Now, I do a couple different things with this information. I ask 5 primary questions when I take people through some of their wounding. If we look back at it, I look at what happened, the basic raw material, how did you feel in your times of greatest challenge, the sort of ouch, right? The away from motivator that you don't want to feel anymore. What do you crave in those moments? What do you long for? Because your feelings and your cravings mirror and match the away from and towards motivators of your ideal tribe. So if we can look at how you felt and what you craved, we can then go, oh, there's something in that that we can use to speak directly to the heart of the motivation of your tribe, right? Build that really immediate, visceral connection with those people. That know, like, trust factor. Well, who do you know, like, and trust more than somebody that's gone through something you're going through, that knows the ins and outs of that journey, and knows how to guide you through it? That's who you trust most. And we can actually look at how you felt and what you crave, to look at those away from and towards motivators, build those into your marketing language to build that immediate rapport and connection with your tribe, to say, I do know how you feel. I've been there. It feels like this, doesn't it? And I know what you want more than anything. It's this, isn't it? And they're like, how did you know? Right? It's like you're reading my mind. It's like, yeah, well, I've been there, right? So that's the first 2 questions. Based on what happened, how did you feel, and what did you crave? The third question I ask is, how did you compensate? And that's what we're going to be focusing on tonight. Because what I find is when we crave something in our wounding that we can't get that need met, we do things kind of circle around to try to get those needs met. And it develops a muscle in us by doing it over and over and over again. Now, we're usually blind to it because we've done it our whole lives. But when we can look at how did I compensate for my wounding? What did I do in relationship to it? And what skill and capacity was built as a result of that? Then we can decode, oh, there's some special, unique X factor, special sauce that you have that we can package and market. So we're going to focus on that. And I will say the final question that I ask around wounding when I'm discovering what I call your life PhD, the PhD that came from your challenges, is what beliefs did you take on? So what did you believe about yourself and about the world? And that's really where our wounding is in our wounding in a household or whatever arena of life we grew up in. If somebody tells you you're a stupid idiot, on some level, in order to stay safe in that household, you have to agree. Yeah, I am a stupid idiot. Now, there's another part of you that never takes on the belief, and there starts the, I'm a stupid idiot. No, I'm not. I will prove them wrong. There starts the drama of life, right? But the wounding is really the identity belief we take on in response to the environment. It's a safety need. We'll go into that in another night and how that relates to business. But it does relate to the underlying challenge your ideal people have and why they need you most and why they're looking for you. So if you know what that is, you know, oh, that's the transformation I need to bring them through. But tonight, we're focusing on how did you compensate for the wounding. So as I mentioned a little while ago, I was speaking to this group of leaders, and I didn't pay as much attention to that question until the day I led that day long. Because over and over again, people were like, oh wait, what was it? Blah, blah, blah. And what they wanted to know each time was, what did I develop? What special skill did I develop that as a leader I can market? So for example, one of the guys there grew up in foster homes. Foster home after foster home after foster home. And I said, okay, great. How did you feel and what did you crave? And he answered those questions. And I say, how did you compensate? How did you get by? Time after time after time feeling so alone and abandoned and like nobody's there for you, because I got really good at building connection with people quickly, at understanding the environment and knowing how to assimilate very quickly, whether it was a school or the foster home or whatever new environment I was in. And I was like, genius, because this is a guy that has a company that provides outsourced sales teams for other companies, right? And what's the genius? Right? What's the biggest challenge with outsourced sales? The biggest challenge is the salespeople don't know anything about your company or what you do, and most of all, they don't understand your culture and how to relate to your ideal clients. And so they're really ineffective in actually closing deals. But his company is really good at it. And he just thought, well, somehow I know how I'm good at it or why that happens, but he never really like decoded it. And I was like, you spent your life learning how to build immediate rapport with people. New system after new system after new system after new system. You know the ins and outs about how immediately to connect with people, to have them feel like they know you, like they understand you, and like they want to bring you on board, like they want to be with you. That's the fundamental skill you have at the foundation of your business today. That's why you're so successful, right? And especially not just with your own sales, but outsourced sales, that you can assimilate into another company, understand its language, its culture, who its clients are, and how to speak to those clients to have immediate rapport and effective sales. And it was like the light bulbs went off. Oh my God, I never saw a connection between the life I've lived and why I'm so good at what I do today, right? And now we can actually package that and say, you know, our company provides outsourced sales, but our genius is in understanding your culture, your company's culture, what you care about and what you're really about, and how that relates to your ideal market. so that we're an extension of your brand and that it never feels sort of wonky or disjointed when you hand us off, but it feels like a seamless transition from your leads into our salespeople and back into your funnel with your customers, your new customers, right? That you can market that as genius. And that was the real light bulb, like, oh, wow, yeah, that is what I'm best at in the world. And wouldn't you want to understand what that is and be able to package it? Yeah. So that's what we're going to focus on tonight. Before I go any further, I want to see if there's any questions. No? Okay. Good. This is going to be interactive tonight, so feel free to ask questions and we'll address them as we go. Let's see if there's anything else I want to say before I do some coaching. No. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to bring a couple of you up on stage. I'm probably going to do one or two that are a little bit longer, and then we'll do some laser coaching, because I find that once I've taken a couple people through the process, it's going to make sense to people, and then we can just go, boom, you, what was the wound? What was the challenge, right? What was the compensation? What's your business? Here's the X factor. So that's what we're going to be up to tonight. Let me just say a few things about people that come up on stage. I have huge respect for people that do this work on stage because I am asking you to speak about things that normally we don't talk about in polite company, right? Things that are typically very vulnerable. So we'll be respectful as a room. Know that everybody has their challenges they've gone through in life, and that I've heard pretty much everything that I could imagine. It's very, very rare that anything surprises me. Also know that this isn't primarily meant to be healing per se, so we're not doing therapy. This is primarily really connecting the dots, decoding your life and understanding its design in service to what. So while it may be cathartic, it may not be cathartic, and either one of those is fine. Good. So I'm going to do, first, I'm going to work with somebody that maybe has a business that's not so off the ground yet, that's maybe struggling a little bit, or maybe you're doing okay, but there's a lot more growth potential available. That's one. Then I'm going to be working with somebody that has a larger reach and a more successful, substantial business, but there's another level of contribution you're being asked to move into. And then we'll just do laser coaching. So, yeah, good. So here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody who has a business, and they know what the business is, and it's doing okay, perhaps good, but you know there's a lot more growth potential, and maybe you haven't really discerned, like, what is genius about me? What is my special sauce? How am I differentiated from other people? And how do I talk about what I do in a way that has me stand out more than I do today? So if you are in that camp, raise your hand, and willing to be up here with me, raise your hand. Yep, come on up. Hi. Hi. What's your name?
Alex.
Alex. Good to meet you. Likewise. Thank you. All right. Let's get you situated. Yes. Awesome. We'll get this nice and close. There we go.
All right.
All right. Cool. So, Alex, tell me about your business. What do you do?
I'm a midwife.
Okay.
So I deliver babies.
Yep.
And I coach people on preconception work.
Uh-huh.
And coach people on how to have a vital experience during their pregnancy.
Okay.
And I do postpartum work.
Great. And is there any client base that, like, oh, these people do especially well with me?
Yes.
Who are those?
Affluent, conscious, awake, evolving people who get it already.
And they get what?
Self-care.
Uh-huh. All right, so they're part of the self-care revolution. They believe in self-care, and they want that to be part of their birthing process.
Correct.
All right, cool. So a decent understanding of tribe already, yeah? And how long have you been doing this?
About 15 years.
All right, awesome, good. And there is something emerging for you, yes?
Yes.
What's that?
So the next step, which is instead of me taking care of every individual person, a broader expansion, so I'm reaching a larger audience and really delivering the intellectual information in a spiritual, like in that conscious package, but
Good.
a much like more international, broader, really transformational. Like
As just an aside, is one of the things you're thinking about, or have you thought about a certification program for other midwives? I know, it's going to make you cringe.
I have taught around 25 other midwives in LA, and they have become my competition.
Yeah, all right, good. So let's deal with that.
Okay.
All right. Because one of the things I really believe, like really, really, really believe, is that we don't have competition. We have what I call niche mates. People that share our niche, right? But the people that you're designed to serve and the people that they're designed to serve are actually different. Even if what you technically are doing, whether it's teaching business and marketing or you're a midwife, even though what you're doing on the surface might look exactly the same, why you're doing it and what transformation you deliver via what you do is different. And when we can decode what that is, we can set you apart from people that currently we would call competition.
Okay.
Cool?
All right.
All right, good. So we're going to just do a little trip down memory lane here into some of your, into some of your core wounding, your training program. When I ask you some of these questions about how you felt and what you craved, keep in mind that you can either tell me what you remember feeling or craving, or what you probably felt or craved, what you think you probably felt or craved, right? Because sometimes we don't actually remember what we felt when we were 3 or 5 or 7, but our psyche can still conjure that up. Cool?
Okay.
All right. Let me say another thing about wounding is that wounding is either acute or chronic. Most wounding is actually chronic, not acute. So acute is, seeing a sibling get hit by a car. That moment, it's acute. It's deeply impactful. Chronic is living with a parent that says you're never going to amount to anything, and they did that for 18 years period straight, or maybe they still do it to this day, right? So that's a chronic wound, and in my experience, most wounding is chronic, and it's less obvious when it's chronic because it was just part of the ocean you swam in. So when you grew up, if you can think in the first part of life, first 7 to 10 years, or if the memory doesn't work so well there, first 18 or so years, what are some of the wounding experiences that come to mind?
I grew up in a household with a lot of abuse, physical and verbal.
From mom or dad or both?
Dad. Mom mostly just disconnected and not really capable of dealing with it.
Yep.
So disconnect, separation, isolation.
So we'll come back to that in a minute. So that's the major thing. Are there a couple other things that might add spice into the mix?
Alcoholism.
From dad as well?
Most just dad. So an instability.
Yeah.
Emotional instability.
All goes together.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to use that. Let me say, when I'm doing this in like a day-long workshop, we go into 3 to 5 childhood wounds and into about 3 adulthood wounds, because what I'm looking for is the pattern of the wounding. I don't actually, on some level, care so much about what exactly happened. That's just the raw material. What I'm looking for is the pattern, because the pattern dictates the training and development program. And I look at childhood and adulthood because they need to match, right? Patterns repeat. So it tells me we got the pattern right if the pattern repeats. Good? All right. So Dad I want you to think about a specific instance that comes to mind around Dad's abuse and alcoholism. Got it? How old were you?
11.
11. What happened?
It had been a period of like really bizarre, absurd behaviors, physical, like just, you know, when the disease is on, it's just, there's just chaos. I just remember being in the basement with my mom and the conversation of divorce and leaving, and I remember pleading with my mother, leave him, protect us, and, you know, like, this is just being present to the dysfunction of the experience itself.
So in that moment where you're really present to the dysfunction, as an 11-year-old, how did you feel?
Desperate.
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 What else?
Just angst and like fear of survival, really. Like a desperate need for peace.
Got it. Desperate need for peace. Great. So you were desperate, and when you had that desperate need for peace, then how did you feel?
Like a beggar.
Like a beggar.
Yeah.
Got it. And when you felt like this beggar, what did you crave? What did you really want more than anything in the world?
To be protected.
Yeah. Because if you were protected, then you would feel how?
Free.
Free. And if you were free, that would feel how?
Expansive.
Great. So we have, you know, on the basic level, this desperation, this pleading, and this sort of like, you know, need for survival. And on the other hand, the desire, the craving, the thing that's opening up is freedom, expansiveness, and that's like the emotional craving of your life, really. So we know that on some level that's going to mirror and match her tribe, and we'll get back to that. Let's go to the third one. When you had that desperation and you longed for this freedom, what did you do?
I attempted to encourage my mother to shift the dynamic for everybody's sake.
How did you attempt to convince her?
By begging her.
Begging her.
And, you know, encouraging and attempting to support her, which, you know, is not the easiest thing intellectual, you know, at that stage of my own.
So you tried avenue after avenue after avenue after avenue to try to get her to listen, to encourage her, to support her, and if you encouraged and supported her, your hope was she would wake up and listen, and out you would go.
Yes.
Good. Around your father. So this is a memory of you and your mom in the basement, right? I want you to imagine a memory of you and your father when he was abusive. Got one?
Yeah.
Yeah, just saw it. Good. In that moment, you don't even have to tell us what it was. In that moment, how did you feel?
Rageful.
Rageful. And when you felt rageful, then how did you feel?
I'm like seeing King Kong right now. Just like almost like wanting to just destroy the experience. Just
Tear it all apart. Yeah. And if it were all torn apart, your hope was that you would get what?
I would surface.
You would surface.
Yeah.
And what would surfacing feel like?
Breathing.
Breathing. And when you feel like you can surface and breathe, you feel how?
Happy.
All right. Good. Do you do underwater births?
Yeah.
It becomes really obvious once you start decoding it. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Kind of crazy, huh? Yeah. So one more question, then we're going to pull this together a little bit. But I like it when the dominoes start to, yeah. When you felt rageful, like you wanted to tear everything down and surface and breathe, what did you do in those instances to try to get some semblance of breath and freedom?
I was an artist. I would do art.
Ah, you would escape and do art. Uh-huh. And what kind of art would you do?
Graphic, like almost like horrific imagery.
Uh-huh. Got it. With pens and pencils, with paint, with anything?
The graphic was with clay.
Uh-huh. Oh, so it was three-dimensional.
That part, but I spent as much time in the art room as I could.
Uh-huh. Got it. Good. And what did you get really good at in that art room creating these graphic pieces of art?
Busts, like full life size imagery.
And what skill do you need to have to be good at busts?
Detailed work. Real life.
Got it. And so let's connect some dots here. So when you are teaching midwives how to be midwives, what do you feel like is your biggest stake in the ground? What do you say, like, you must get this?
To step outside the clinical and step into the feeling part of the experience, like imbibing what's actually happening, picking up on the almost like the extrasensory experiences that are occurring, the primal connection.
And why is it so important?
Because you can feel what's actually happening. And by doing that, you can not just protect the experience, but you can move with the subtle forces that are expressing themselves, and the next steps are very clear.
Got it. So there's a couple obvious things popping out to me here. One of the things she did was got involved in clay and in busts and got really good at finite details, really good at sensory details with her hands and fingers around these real human forms, right? So what perfect training for delivering babies? You know, years of learning how to feel what these forms feel like, right? You were training yourself on how to birth children. You didn't know it, but you were doing that. And you got especially good at paying attention to finite detail, right? I can almost see you in the clay studio with your eyes closed, working the clay.
So what I'm really good at is resuscitation. Like when babies are born and they're not breathing, it is like, never do I like want that complication, but when it happens, it's like one of my strongest skill sets.
All right, great. Helping them emerge.
Helping them breathe.
You fight for their life.
Yeah.
Been doing it all your life.
Yeah.
Good. All right, so let's look back at your tribe. So these women, and is it, you know, 9 times out of 10, is it the woman hiring you, or is it a couple hiring you?
It's her
Mainly
decision.
the woman, yeah. And when you talk to these women, what are their biggest fears?
Complications.
Like, what do they actually say? Like, just imagine you're one of them. I'm so scared that.
Well, what if I, you know, tell me what could go wrong? What could go wrong?
And so their biggest fears are that something is going to go wrong.
Or that they fail. like what if I have to transport, and what would that mean? And they're afraid that the "I told you so's" are gonna like
Around using a midwife instead of doing it in a hospital. Got it. Okay. And their hope, like if they could wave a magic wand, what do they hope for more than anything?
painless, 6 hours, victory, like just that sense of accomplishment.
Got it. All right. So what I'm going to say is a couple things. So around the marketing, I want you to reference both the feeling of, because there's a marketing application and a training and development program here. The marketing application is how you felt at the bottom of the stairs with mom, right? And that on some level mirrors the real internal feeling your ideal tribe has. That feeling of desperation, right? It's like they're feeling the desperation almost, this is a weird way to say it, almost preventatively. Like if I feel it enough now, it's gonna not happen, right? But they're seeing themselves in that moment of sheer desperation and panic. Can you see that? And that's what they're trying to avoid, right? And if you're trying, if the marketing is really nice and sort of friendly and like blah, 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 and yeah, I'm a midwife and we do water births and blah, blah, like, not gonna land for your people. You say, look, I understand what it feels like to imagine the sheer desperation of having your child survive when you imagine something going wrong, right? The helplessness that feels like, and how much you long to get through it and feel that sense of victory and freedom and like expansion of having your child with you, right? Do you hear how I'm using these same words? And I want to let you know that my genius zone, what I'm the best in the world at, is really reading the subtle cues of your body and your child's body to be sure, to the best of our ability, that that child can emerge and breathe, right? To really feel what's happening every single moment. I'm incredibly attentive, right? I'm very good at resuscitation if for some reason your child isn't breathing right away. But what I want you to know is my genius is being so incredibly attentive in every moment to the subtle details of what's going on in your birth process, that you have the highest possible chance of that baby coming out, emerging, taking that first expansive breath, and you and your baby beginning that beautiful life of freedom and joy. That's how to talk about what you do.
When I have, like, they're like, we'll hire you now. Like, there's that immediate.
Of course.
Yeah.
So the thing is, so funny in marketing, we often try to be friendly versus effective. Right? Because we want to be liked. And frankly, like, it's fine if you want a bunch of friends, but I don't know about you, I have a lot of friends. I'm good on that one. Clients are what most of you want. And that requires you not to be friendly, but to be effective.
Yeah.
Right? And it's usually being, at first, uncomfortably forthright with your genius zone. And when you have the courage to do that, that's when that bond is created. That's when, because here's what happens. You went through your whole life training for this. Whole life. This didn't happen just at like midwifing school, right? This was, decade after decade after decade of training for this. This is why I call it your life PhD, right? And so to have an entire life PhD and not tell someone your credential, it sounds kind of nuts, doesn't it? Like, if you were a PhD scientist and you were around people that needed a PhD scientist in your field, wouldn't you tell them, I have a PhD in this area of science from this university. Of course he would. Oh, that's just what we've been looking for. Well, our life PhD is the same way, right? And when we have the courage to say, I've spent my entire life understanding how to feel the subtle energetics of life emerging. And my genius zone is in helping your baby surface and take that first breath. And I know what it feels like to imagine the desperation of that not happening, how helpless you would feel, and how much you long for that expansive moment of holding your baby. And that's what I want for you too. Would you like to hire me? Done. Done. You're hired. Right? This will be on YouTube as well. So that's the place to go, right?
Yeah.
Now, I want to speak to one other thing, because when you sat down, it was like, yeah, you already kind of know the game in this one, so we're going to spend a few minutes on the bigger mission, because this is like
Great.
my passion is like most people, like, we get into this place and we build the business and we're good at what we do and blah, 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 and then we get to that like, oh, there's something more. There's a bigger, right, contribution here. So this is the place I feel you're a little stalled out, because you can do midwifing all day, every day, right? And you're amazing at it and people get great value. It works, right? And I'm not saying for that to go away, but this larger message wants to emerge out of you. And it's not just a message, it is a skill set that you want to pass on,
Yeah.
right? There's a particular way you do this that no one else does it quite like you. And you are beginning to, here's what I'm hearing, beginning to feel a level of responsibility of passing that on. Is that true? All right, great. So when I get like this weird little head thing, my friends call it my spiritual Tourette's. It's like I get little insights. Who needs this most in the world from you?
Women.
Other midwives.
Oh.
So I want to paint a picture for you. Because right now what you've done is you've trained people kind of here and there. They go out, and you've done it in your own backyard.
Yeah.
And they go out and they become your competition. You know, like, oh, look, I've created 25 of me. And so there's all my competition. It's a very different thing if you have a, you know, institute of your own for midwifery, right? That this institute is something that becomes known, and you as the head of this institute become known along with it. And what I see for you is having something where you have global education, where you're training people all over the world, not just in LA. You're not just right, creating more bunny rabbits in LA. You're creating bunny rabbits all over the world, because you know, bunny rabbits multiply. Right, but that there is a tangible skill around being a midwife that on some level any midwife can talk about and teach. And then there is what changes you from a everyday midwife to a real genius at what you do. And there is something about honoring life that I see that you see is missing in the mechanics of being a midwife for a lot of people. Is that true? What's that?
Well, I've worked in the hospitals and I've worked in home birth, and there's such a disconnect. And I mean, but that's obstetrics.
Yeah.
You know, and few doctors or few nurses can really connect in and treat this experience with the kid gloves, the sanctity that it deserves. And that's depressing. It's very sad, you know, and it's to accompany clients to the hospital and have them be so dishonored and have women just be defeated and the sense of loss and something being taken from them is just, it's so hard to be helpless
Yeah.
to change that.
Right. So, back in the basement with mom, right? But this time, like, nobody's gone anywhere and you're totally defeated and screwed. That's, on some level, what you're addressing globally,
Yeah.
right? And this sanctity of life, this, I just keep, here's what I get about you. You have a genius about feeling this, like your words were the subtle energetics. There's exquisite detail, exquisite attention that you have, and you spent your life learning how to develop that level of attention. And the place you applied that skill is in being a midwife, right? And it's because of this deep care for life, right? And so I see a place for you to teach people about that level of appreciation and honor for life as it's applied in certain ways. Now, in order for this to be a business, it has to solve a need and a hunger, right? So whether you talk about it being with nurses or doctors in hospitals or other midwives, we've got to look at what the presenting problem is that this solves so that you can package it in a way where they go, oh, I really need that, right? So let's just talk about, and we'll just do this for a couple more minutes and we're going to wrap up. Midwives, the number one problem for midwives is what?
Bureaucracy. You know, there's each other. Like, we're not necessarily the warmest community. And that's an issue. And the fact that we're still not really respected by the medical community, you know, there's just a lot of, we're fighting for the ability to do what we do.
Got it.
And it's exhausting. It's, you know,
Yeah.
It's not obstetricians, no disrespect, but they can show up when the baby's head is right there when we sit with women through the whole process.
Right.
And really walk them across the threshold. So you can only do so much.
Let me
before
ask you more specifically.
Yeah.
What's the problem a midwife has when she doesn't have this skill around this exquisite attention?
It's perpetuating the disconnect. Still, women, you know, they might get a little bit more nurturing care, but they don't really walk away with the potential sense of empowerment from having gone through the process. Like, there still feels like there's some kind of violation, or like,
Even if the birth goes okay?
Yeah.
And, yeah. All right. So, you know, if you were to go in that direction, and, you know, if we had a longer time, we could explore this much more deeply. But for tonight, what I'd say is, you know, if you look at the midwives who maybe aren't having as much success, right? And they don't get referrals, and the doctors don't respect them, and they're really questioning whether they're in the right field or not. Oh, wow. What I just got was, on some level, they like, okay, this is really down the rabbit hole, but like, they aren't really honoring themselves, right? That if you were to train midwives, you'd be training them knowing that the underlying problem is they aren't really honoring themselves. And how the hell can you honor anybody else or a newborn baby if you aren't really honoring yourself, right? So you can look at where that, if you weren't really honoring yourself, where that problem would emerge as a need they would need to solve in their business or in their life or in their practice, which might be about business building. It might be around I just can't seem to get them to have that level of satisfaction. Like, it looks like I did everything right and the baby's out. Why are they happy? But they aren't. I don't know why. Please help. Right? So, or if you were working with emerging midwives who wanted training and aren't midwives already, right? You'd be focusing on, look, there's a lot of schools you can go to or a lot of people you can train with who can train you in this skill. but there's something much more deep that makes this something so incredibly valuable that you'll stay in business for years and love it. And it's this piece, and that's what I have for you. Okay? Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Good. Okay. So before we move on, we're going to do one more slightly longer one, then we'll do some laser coaching before we wrap up. Before we move on, I want to see what questions you have about what we just went through, or insights or ahas.
So, it's more of an insight and aha, but what I heard about the not honoring themselves, it's being reflected back to them through the system of not honoring them.
Right.
And if they honor themselves, the system will be forced to begin to honor them.
Bit by bit.
Bit by bit.
Yeah.
It may be a slow road, but I mean it's how it's reflected right now.
That's the larger mission.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome, thanks. Anybody else? All right, cool. Here's what I want to do next. I want to work with somebody who's, and not to say this isn't true before, somebody who's established in what you're doing. You've been doing it for a while. You've been successful at it, and there's something new emerging. There's like a bigger mission, a bigger calling. You kind of feel like, I could keep doing this, but I've really got to be up to this, and how do I make that transition? So if you're in that place, I want you to, and are willing to be up here, raise your hand. All right, great. Come on up. What's your
Barbara.
name? Barbara.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Thanks for having me up here.
All right, cool. There we go. That looks about right. So, there we go. Take a breath.
Okay. I'm just looking at the girl that was just up here. Did she leave?
Right
Oh,
here.
okay.
Yep.
God, I related so much that she talked about.
Yeah, awesome. So, let's start here. What do you do now?
I'm a hypnotherapist.
Hypnotherapist. How long have you been a hypnotherapist?
10 years.
Uh-huh, great. And business is going well?
Yes.
Do you see clients one-on-one? Do you teach courses, all of the above?
I do all of the above.
Uh-huh. How is it feeling to run that business in its current incarnation today?
That I feel like that I'm touching the few instead of the many.
Uh-huh.
And which it lights me up of how I can help my clients. It just gives me everything.
Mm-hmm.
It gives me significance, contribution, growth. It gives me all of that. However, I developed this new technique that is so powerful that I almost said, you know what, I'm just going to kind of like write a little thing about it and kind of sell it. And then I thought, oh gosh, no, I can't do that, because you need to be trained in this. You need to really understand. It's not just this ball getting thrown back. You have to really understand how the mind works and what's the conscious mind doing and how's the subconscious mind getting overwhelmed with it and all of this other stuff. And I am overwhelmed because I don't know the next step. When you were talking to the other woman up here about certifying and doing that, and I recognize in LA that it's kind of all sizzle, no steak, and that people get certified because somebody just opens up.
Just opened a certification program.
Yeah, you know, and,
Right.
and that's it. And I think that's where a lot of where people feel like frauds,
Yeah.
you know, come from, because they're like, well, gee, I took a weekend course and all of a sudden I'm certified to do blah, blah, blah. You
Yep.
know, and I don't want that. I want this to be expansive and real and people to actually get it so they can go out there and change people's
All right.
lives.
So this new method you developed, it's awesome because why?
Because it literally breaks limiting beliefs.
And what's so great about that?
Because these patterns that you're talking about, and actually the patterns that you're talking about seem to me are helpful, you know, that you're using something that you've developed and now you're giving to the world using what you know. And breaking limiting beliefs, to me, is life-changing.
Yeah.
It's just life-altering.
Great. So I will say, by the way, you know, when I do deeper levels of work with people, while the skill has been developed out of the wounding, if the belief is still there, I'm a piece of crap, or nobody wants me, or I don't
Right.
have any value, or whatever. And even at this like very unconscious sort of down
Subtle
here
level,
level, you know, I always say people can't buck your current.
Right.
So if you believe it and you're running that current, everybody has to agree with you.
Right.
You know, and so there definitely is a time and place to what I would call reveal a greater truth,
Right.
which breaking the pattern
right.
of the belief
Those
is
limiting
part of
false
that.
beliefs
Yeah.
are just
All right.
everywhere.
So, the bigger vision is you bringing this technique to whom? To other hypnotherapists?
Well, everyone, like when I say everyone, everyone in, like, could be life coaching, it could be psychology, well, not a psychiatrist because they mostly do the medical stuff, but
Right.
psychologist,
Yep.
hypnotherapist, coaching, anybody at all that has to deal with teaching others on how to change their lives.
Yeah. And actually, I will say a lot more of this is actually entering into mainstream medicine as well.
Yes.
So don't discount that. All right. And the biggest reason why you can't bring this to a larger audience is what?
I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed with how do I start this? What do I do? How do I do blah, blah, blah?
And do you have a vision for what it would look like to bring it to a larger audience?
I had an aha moment the other day where, like I said, I actually got everything, the logo, the packaging, everything together, and I was, whoa, this is not the way to do it. This is just not the way to do it.
All right.
And what my vision is to have these courses, have this ongoing certification, have these things that, like when you were talking about her, and I could just feel how passionate she is about what she does. And if she can teach that to someone else, like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it just gives me the chills.
Yeah.
That's how I feel with what my gift is. And if I
right.
could show that and teach that to other people.
All right.
Oh,
So here's the very sort of top line business thing I'm seeing. The clarity of vision is kind of murky.
very.
So what it is you would be doing, for whom, how it would be packaged and delivered, all of that is sort of all still up in the air, right? The vision of seeing people utilize this at scale, that's exciting.
Right.
That's clear.
Right.
Right? The details of form, not there yet.
And I know that there's a certain, what's the word, formula, that there's a certain formula, because I see other companies doing something, they all use the same formula. And where I get when the same formula is being used is that there's something not authentic about it. There's something gimmicky and salespeople, and
Yeah.
I can't go there. And I
Right.
think that's something that's,
All right. So now let's do a little journey down memory lane.
okay.
Because what we want to do is like, we can apply this to your one-on-one hypnotherapy practice audience, but that's not really what I'm interested in with you.
Right.
I'm really interested in applying this to what's the larger craving or evolution that wants to happen in the world through you, and who needs that, who's a part of that. Right? On one level, it's like I can do this all day, every day with my clients, and that's fine and good. But when you get to what I call a mission level calling, you're looking at what's the larger social movement or larger industry I'm meant to be a thought leader in and help change or evolve. And what do I bring to that audience and to that conversation, and how do I package it so that those people participate with me in that conversation?
Right. Nothing excites me more than when clients have breakthroughs.
Yeah.
And you know,
There
especially
will be something that
kids. I mean,
excites you
there's
more.
just,
There's going to be something that excites you a lot more when you see hundreds of people doing this with thousands of kids
Right.
having breakthrough moments.
Right.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah. Let me say one other thing before I go into this about larger missions or social movements. A lot of my clients, so the majority of my clients are usually women, usually in their 50s, who've been really driven and successful. They get to a point in life where they're like, okay, I'm good. I can do that all day, every day. But what's the bigger contribution I'm on this planet for, right? And that's usually when my clients come to me. And what I find is that it's this really beautiful place where a lot of the old stories and wounds and whatnot just kind of start to break apart like particles that just don't fit anymore, right? And there still has to be a new motivation for bringing something out into the world. In fact, the reason I partner with Prudence at the Hall Center is a lot of them also need what she has. They can't do a bigger mission if their adrenals are screwed up and their hormones are out of whack and their body isn't there and their vitality isn't there.
right.
Right? And so I pay attention to that in my clients. And when it's something very physical, I actually just did my lab work starting this past July, and I feel so amazing. I was just saying, like, in the last month, it seems to have really kicked in, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm cooking with gas.
Right, that's right.
Right? It's so good. So anyway, I'm now a convert and a fan. I was in mind before, but now I am in body as well. All right, so let's look at some of your challenges in wounding.
Okay.
And we're particularly going to be paying attention to audience in terms of social movement tribe. So if you look back in your life, are there either chronic or acute woundings that you can go back to and go, oh, that was a big player in my life?
This is going to sound strange, but I have this memory of being in the womb, and my mom was 16, my dad was 18. She got pregnant, and my mom's from an Italian family, and all the little old lady Italians were just like, oh, how horrible, and how it's a shame, and wait till your father gets back from his trip, and And I remember being so codependent, I guess, with my mom, saying, Mom, I'll handle this. Don't worry, I'll take care of this. I'll make you okay. I'll be your best friend, don't worry.
All right.
And it's as if once I was born, I had to prove to everyone, look, you should be happy I'm here now.
Uh-huh. So we'll take that one, and we're going to look at something a little later in life. Actually, to answer this question, do you have a memory of the same sort of shame being heaped on you after you were born at some point?
Yes, I felt that, and gosh, now I'm just realizing it. My whole life, it's either I'm here or I'm here.
And what's here and what's here?
It could be everything. I'm like feast or famine. It could be I'm the sweetest person or the biggest bitch. It's complete opposites. And that's how my family was. We were completely a normal family or completely dysfunctional.
Uh-huh.
And that dysfunction, I would want to hide from everyone.
What did the dysfunction look like?
Mostly from my dad. And I remember being in 4th grade and coming home. And my mom and dad were separated for about a year and a half. And during that separation, my dad came in and destroyed the house. I mean, like...
Because?
He doesn't remember. He doesn't know.
Your interpretation of the because is?
That he was drunk and that he was mad that my mom was going out with other guys and that he was an asshole. I mean, I don't know, sorry.
And were you home?
No, but I was a safety, and I was 4th grade, and they came and got me off my safety corner and said, you got to come home right now. And I was like, whoa, why?
So they come and get you off from your job as the safety patrol person on the corner. And good little girl, 4th grade, keeping the peace and keeping the kids safe.
Yes, keeping the peace, yes.
And come home, And it's nothing like keeping the peace or keeping the kids safe. It's like what?
My brother, who's 2 years younger than me, so he was in second grade. God, just thinking about that breaks my heart. And he and I actually got our piggy banks out, and you had to break them. Like then,
Right,
you,
yep.
could- you know, you had to break them to get it out, and we broke them to give my mom all the money to get it fixed. And my dad walked in. I'll never forget this moment. My dad walked in and looked at everything, and he started laughing.
And that made you feel how?
It made me feel uncared for. It made me feel superior in a way, like I'm going to kill you. Like, how dare you? You think you're going to get away with this because you're not. And at that moment, he was disgusting to me.
So uncared for, vengeful, and he was disgusting.
Yes, just
Interesting word.
Just that look that he was looking around the house, and it was like he was laughing. This like
And in that moment, what did you want more than anything?
to be normal. I wanted to be normal. I wanted a house that on the other extreme where I would come home at Halloween or Christmas and it would all be decorated. My mom has all food and everything's all beautiful. It was those extremes. That normal Norman Rockwell household Thanksgiving.
Because if you had that, you would feel how?
Safe and secure.
Uh-huh. And when you feel safe and secure, you feel how?
At peace.
Uh-huh. Got it. So you wanted things to be normal. And if they were normal, you'd feel safe and secure. What did you do? How did you try to get a sense of that normalcy?
I did everything to win everything. So it would be if anyone found out the truth of our dysfunction, I was already superior above them, so they wouldn't able to drag me down.
So,
But it's all a false belief. I mean, I didn't really feel it. I wanted to feel it.
yeah, I get it.
Right,
I get it. So I tried to be the best
right,
so that I was superior,
right.
so that if they found out, I would still be ahead of the curve.
Well, at least they couldn't drag me down because they could drag me down and I would feel it, but I would never let someone know that they did.
Uh-huh.
I would be like, really? Who do you think you are?
Yeah. So there's this amazing fighting spirit in you,
Yes.
right? That sounds
much
like it's
sometimes.
been there your whole
Yes.
life.
Right.
And in the first half of life, the fighting spirit was applied to your family of origin in saying, like, I refuse to go into the gutter, right?
Right.
You
And
can-
again, same with the woman earlier, like, Mom, you are not going to take this. You
Uh-huh.
are not going, even with her relatives, they would take advantage of it.
So
Like,
there's a
no.
slight difference, right? One was pleading, please don't take it. Yours was a demand.
Right. And it would embarrass her.
You are
because,
not gonna take
oh,
this."
Barbara, don't, I'm like, no, you're not, this is not happening. I'm sorry. You can't do this to her.
All right.
Leave.
Where does that skill of making a demand of somebody show up in your hypnotherapy?
All the time. I'm not very nice. I'm not, when you said, I'm like, oh, it's good, everything, I'm like, no, you're not doing that.
Right.
That's it. We're getting rid of this. Move on.
All right, good. And how does... right? Now, by the way, just that, doesn't that sound more like a hypnotherapist you'd actually want to hire? Right? Like somebody that can say, I am a demand for this.
Right.
That's kind of sexy.
Right.
Good. All right. And where does that demand show up in this special technique you've developed?
Oh, that's a great question. Because it takes generally 8 minutes, and without me going into it, there's two certain personality types, a fizz and an emo. An emo can take up to 23 minutes, but a fizz about 8 to 10 minutes. And I'm not stopping till it's broke. We're not stopping. If I have to go 30 minutes, we're going to do 30 minutes. Period. We're not stopping. We're not like, oh, it's time. Then my next client will have to wait. We're stopping.
Where does that demand, that... So I get that in how you show up for the client. Where does it show up in this technique that you developed?
The not stopping? You mean like, okay, the demand of, oh, okay, here it is. I am not allowing the subconscious mind, although it rules 90% of us, 90% of our everyday actions, I'm not going to let it beat us, the conscious mind, down of what it is that we actually require. And I say require because we require air. I mean, it's stuff that we have to have. It's not wanting, it's need, it's requiring. And I'm saying to the subconscious mind, no, I don't care. I don't care if you're
All right.
tough. I don't care if you're big.
Good.
We're knocking you down.
Now, if you had a bully pulpit,
A what?
Bully pulpit. If you had a stage,
Okay.
in front of all the world's hypnotherapists globally,
Okay.
right? You're at a big stadium.
Okay.
You're the keynote. What's the demand you have for the people in your profession?
That they need to look at their client as whole, perfect, and complete, not to look at them at what these patterns and behaviors are and say, oh, I don't know, the poor thing. No poor thing, know this. This is who they are. This is where they can go. And you're going to put all of your energy into getting them there.
So here's something I'm going to say in terms of your special sauce. And I think if we tease this out more, there would be something around special sauce around where she went in relationship to the conflict in the house, which was part of how you really developed your understanding of the mind and how to read the mind, right? And so all the skill you developed that allowed you to be a really good hypnotherapist was also in relationship to that. And we could tease that apart. But the most obvious thing here is this warrior that you are.
Yeah, but
right?
sometimes, like I said, just
Well, if a
overpowering
warrior-
too much where I
If a
can turn
warrior
people off.
is being a warrior when she needs to be a lover or when she needs to be a friend, that's one thing. But if a warrior is being a warrior on the battlefield, that's another thing, right?
Okay.
And this mission of yours, to me, feels like a place where you need to plug this energy in to a global something you want to see happening in the world, right?
I want people to stick up for themselves.
There you go.
I want
Do you
people.
hear how clear and simple that is? Do you hear how clear and simple that is?
Yes.
So now we need to know which people you need to help stick up for themselves and why they're your people,
Okay.
right? So as it relates to coaches and hypnotherapists and therapists and social workers and so forth, like, what's the subset of that group that needs to learn how to stick up for themselves more than anybody else?
In regards to hypnotherapists and coaches and stuff like that, that they need to do the work. They need to do the work.
Here's what I'm getting for you.
Okay.
I think there is a message here for you, for your industry, and when I say your industry, the broader your industry, around service professionals standing up for their clients. I don't think there's a lot of them that actually do it. I think
Right.
they collude with their clients' wounding.
Right.
I think they collude with their stories and their drama.
Right.
They try to make them feel better. There's all this crap that happens, but not a lot of effective change.
Right.
And the one thing, and like when I teach people how to be good salespeople, it's always about putting a stake in the ground for that person's benefit, right? Which is standing up, sticking up for the potential client
Right.
and what they want in the world. But there's something here about you teaching people how to take a stand for their clients that they don't know how to do. Now tell me, when somebody doesn't know how to, in your experience,
Right.
when somebody doesn't know how to take a stand for their clients, it's because of what psychologically?
Oh, well, they always feel inferior, or they feel that they're not deserving, or they feel that
All right, so this
they
comes
don't
back
have,
to the shame.
you know, the conquering aspect. They're retreating, they're not conquering. And what would happen if, and what would...
And how much does shame play a role in that population's
Oh,
life?
sure, a lot.
Yeah. So this piece of shame, right, whether it's the still in the womb memory or sometimes after the womb, like I want it to be Norman Rockwell, but it's a little Freddy Krueger. and I don't want people to know, and I don't want to be shamed, and I'm going to do all these things so that you can't shame me or drag me down with it. Like, there is a lifetime experience about how to deal with shame and on some level overcome shame. Yes?
Yes.
And that, I feel like, is really the larger mission here that your special process accompanies. So if I were to paint a picture about the who for the larger mission in your life, I would say it's service-based professionals who don't know how to take a stand for their clients, and their clients aren't getting the results they need. Like, that's what you're a stand for.
Okay.
Right? And that you have a process, this very unique process, to help them absolutely take a stand for their clients. And how can you take a stand for the clients when the client is fighting for the limiting belief or fighting for this?
Right. Secondary gain, whatever
Right,
they're getting
whatever it
from
is.
Right.
Right? So if you can break that, you can actually take a stand for the client and help them achieve the life they want.
Right, absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And so I see you actually training people in this method who want to learn how to take a stand for their clients' lives. And, you know, finally break through the repeating pattern over and over again of feeling like their clients aren't getting the result that they actually need or want, that they're hired to help them achieve in the time that they need to achieve it. I think this is about like the silver bullet for fast change for people who are ready to actually finally have their clients break through. Right? And I think the mission-based part of it is for you to really go on a crusade as it relates to service-based professionals in these different fields and really start getting on stages globally at the International Coach Federation conferences, at the psychotherapy conferences, like at all these different places. It's really time to become a speaker and a thought leader about providing real lasting change for clients.
Right. Thank you. That was perfect. Thank you very much.
You got it. Good thing. Beautiful. Thank you. So let's see. Yeah, good. So at this point, I want to just do some more laser coaching with folks. So we won't go through a whole big thing here on stage. I'll probably still bring you up, but we'll do a little faster pieces. So what I'm looking for is anybody that's like, oh yeah, I want to know what differentiates me in the marketplace. I want to know what that special sauce is that I developed from my life and how it applies to my business. So, who's got something? Bethany, come on up. It'll be easier for a camera. Hi, this is Bethany, everybody. Hi. So tell everybody what you do.
I help authors. I work with authors, helping them finally get their books done, get their book out of their head into their hand.
Great. Anybody here want to write a book? Yes. Great. Good. What's your website?
Publishingpartner.com.
Publishingpartner.com. Great. So, I love Bethany. She's a former client of mine and a rock star. So, endorsement from the get-go. So, there's a lot of people that help people write books.
That's right. There
Right?
are.
There's a lot of book coaches.
Yes.
And so now we need to know which people need you.
Yeah.
Right? So this is where I'm going to look at, I break down people's problems in marketing into 3 different types of problems: public, secret, and unknown. When we're talking about the wound, we're talking about the unknown thing that's causing the problem in people's lives. They're not aware of it. It's happening under the surface, which means you also can't market to it. It's unknown. But it is something that you need to address to cause transformation, right? So then we look at the public and the secret problem. The public problem is the problem that emerges from the wound that they're aware of, that they want help with, that they're ready to spend money on to solve. And the secret problem is how they secretly feel about having their problem show up over and over and over again. So for example, if the public problem around relationship is our kids left the house and we have empty nest syndrome now, and I'm looking at my husband and I'm not so amazed and I wonder if I should get a divorce or not, and I don't know what to do, right? So that's somebody, and we could add some other details to make the hunger grow and so forth. But that's an example of a problem they're aware of, that they're thinking about, that they might need help with. Now, if that person found lipstick somewhere, well, now the problem might become more acute in needing to really discover what's going on. So, and then the secret problem is how somebody would feel, like if they suspected their husband of having an affair, right? They'd feel ashamed, scared, angry, right? All these different emotions. And so you can speak to those in marketing as well, because they're aware of them. Even though they might not talk publicly about them, they're still aware of them, so you can still whisper those things, I know how you feel, and they'll resonate with that. But you can't speak to the unknown problem. However, the unknown problem is the thing that needs to be addressed to cause transformation in the delivery of the public problem solution. So your public problem solution is, the public problem is, I have a book in my head and it's not in my hands. That's the most basic articulation of the public problem.
Yeah.
How do your audience typically feel about that problem?
A lot of times they've been trying to do it on their own for a long time and not succeeding. Sometimes they've paid other people a couple of times over, didn't help them, and still haven't succeeded.
Write the book in a weekend.
Right.
Yeah.
They're
And how do they feel about that failure?
ashamed
Mhm.
and like a failure. It's not
Probably
a
kind of
good-
frustrated.
Yeah, frustrated.
Yeah.
And they,
And probably a little pissed at themselves.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you get that? That's a really fun one.
Especially because they're usually very high achieving people.
Yeah.
And they know how to make stuff happen, and
Oh,
they're just
good.
not making this happen.
Oh, good. I like this already. So now we have the public problem and the secret problem. What we don't have is the unknown problem. What we want to find for you is what the unknown problem is to really define tribe, because this is a perfect example of something you're offering that a lot of other people offer. But if we can really understand what the unknown problem is and how that shows up in the world, then we can really define and sculpt our understanding of who the tribe is. Make sense?
Yeah.
Good. So you've done a lot of work on yourself, I know that. So without me digging with a lot of questions, let me just ask you, what do you know about the real problem going on for your clients? What's really cooking underneath the surface that they have to address, that like time and time and time and time again, it shows up for your clients? This thing that they aren't talking about, they didn't hire you for, but it still shows up when you coach them on their book.
It's a deeper fear. It's a fear about their message and how it will be received
And what the fear is that it will be received how?
poorly,
Uh-huh.
or that nobody will hear or listen or value.
So either...
What they have to say is not important.
Mhm.
Even though they're really very well qualified, usually in life, and especially in what they have to say,
Uh-huh.
there's kind of an irrational fear that they don't have anything to say,
Uh-huh. Good.
even though they do.
Uh-huh, got it. Good. And so is it that they'll put it out there and nobody's going to respond? Nobody's going to read it, nobody's going to talk about it, it's just going to sit there like a silent thud, right? Or is it they're going to put it out there and there's going to be a reaction to it, and the reaction is going to be something they don't want?
It could be both.
So it actually is both, isn't it, usually?
Yeah.
So I have these weird two fears happening both at the same time. I have a message, I need to put it out there. On one hand, I'm scared that nobody's going to respond. It's like going to be this big waste of time and money, and it already has felt like that. And on the other hand, I'm scared that people will respond, and they'll respond poorly. So let's go to that one, because actually it's really the bigger of the two fears. So if they respond poorly, the fear is that they'll respond how?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's
Now reference your fears.
yeah, that that they're going to be rejected.
That's really the basis of the whole thing. This is a massive, massive, massive rejection fear,
Yeah.
right? So now let me just hear a little tidbit from your childhood. So when you were a kid, what's one of the primary wounding experiences you went through?
Which one? Now, my dad left
Uh-huh.
when I was very young,
All right. Dad left when you were very young. How did you feel? How old were you?
5,
5. And you felt how?
very sad,
Uh-huh. And?
brokenhearted, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And what did you want more than anything when you felt so brokenhearted?
Part of me wanted it to be okay that I was sad, because it wasn't okay for me to be sad about it.
Wasn't okay in your household for you to be sad? Mm-hmm.
The other part just wanted to be...
So you wanted your emotions validated.
Yeah,
Uh-huh. What else?
and be able to express them.
Uh-huh. Validated and expressed and validated.
Right, both.
Uh-huh.
Also, I wanted to be cared for.
Yeah. And if you were cared for, how would you have felt?
Safe to express myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And free to
yeah.
express myself.
and what did you do in response to that craving? How did you try to get that need met in that household?
To express myself?
To express yourself?
Well, I found ways to express myself that were okay.
Like what?
Artistic expression. I was really good at, I was the kid that would like gather the entire neighborhood together, all the kids in the community, and we'd do circuses and we'd do productions, and I was in charge and telling everybody what to do and get everybody to do their thing.
All right.
So the way I expressed myself was through other people, actually,
Yeah,
in a way.
and that's still what you're doing today. And so part of your X factor, your special sauce, right, in this skill you've developed over and over again of getting other people to follow you and expressing through them, expressing through other people, is you know all the different ways in the book to get people to do something, right?
Yes.
If Johnny doesn't want to do it because you say this, well, tell Johnny that, and then he'll come, right? And if Susie doesn't want to do it then tell Susie this other thing, and then Susie's going to come. And so you kind of became a politician in a way,
Yeah.
a little child politician, learning what people need to hear so they get in motion,
Yeah,
right?
and perform.
And perform, right? And so you still do that today,
Yeah.
right? With your clients, when nothing else has worked, you know how to speak to them and motivate them to get a result every time. That's your genius.
That's true.
That is true. Right? And so I specialize in people that have had a book in them for a while. I specialize in working with people who are normally high achievers and get a lot done but can't seem to get this done. I specialize in working with clients that have maybe taken 2 or 3 different books in a weekend courses, or maybe hired another book coach, and they still procrastinated and didn't get it done and don't know why. And I know how to motivate and inspire you to get your voice out and to get you to perform and get that book out of your head and into your hands every time, no matter what.
Yeah.
Right?
Awesome.
So that's the Genius Zone, so you can definitely market that. And I would market to people that have been burned, right? I would market to people that have had the book in their head for a long time and have already tried other things to get it out and it didn't work, right? Now the other side of the brand, if we were working on your branding, would be creating a brand that mimics the nurturing environment you craved when you were a kid.
And that is really a lot of what I do.
That is a lot of what you do.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is I already knew that part about you because you walk with a certain grace and a certain warmth, right? Like, can't you just see you're like, safe, just safe, right? Just safety written all over this woman. And it's like, oh, I can have my fears about my book, and I can have my fears about my rejection, and I can, like, and it's going to be okay in your arms, right? And so I want that to be a part of your brand, but to make the brand pop, it can't just be that, right? So it's got to be like, here's the nest in which you're going to perform, right? And when you build those two things together, oh, safety and performance, suddenly there's nobody else I want to work with. Good?
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Good. Sweetheart. Let's see, we've got time for one or two more.
That was huge because when she said, that was huge because when she said that she needed to feel safe to express herself when she's younger, now she's giving the authors the permission to be safe to express themselves.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's and then she knows how to make someone feel safe to express themselves to get their book out.
So
I'm talking to you.
Here's the here's the safety that I create so that you have enough safety to perform.
Right.
Because if the safety's not there, I'm never going to perform. Right? That's the deal. Isn't this amazing that we can look at our wounding and time again just see the direct correlation to our work and contribution? It blows my mind. Yes, come on up. Behind you. You'll be next, and then we'll wrap up the night. Hi. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's move this way.
I'm so relating to her
Oh, awesome.
because I happen to have a book that I have written
Yes,
that's in this.
it's in there.
Yes,
So it's almost in her hands. It's just not on paper.
it's an app book,
Uh-huh, right.
and I have a block about it.
Around publishing it. Uh-huh. And when you feel the block, your feeling around that block is what?
That I'm not authentic.
And the message that you're not authentic is a message you've carried for how long?
I think it comes from perhaps being the fact that I was supposed to be a boy. And so they had a boy's name, but I became Miss X without a name for a while.
Got it. So take a breath. Take a breath. One more. One more. Good. So thank you. So it's hard to feel authentic, right? Because what happens on a book? What do you see on the spine of the book? The title and the author's name. So if there's no name there, it's just Miss X. Like, who did it come from? What is this? How do we know? How do we trust it? Like, I can see the relationship to the fear around inauthenticity with that start of life. As you grew up, what did you crave? What did you want?
Validation.
Uh-huh. And if you were validated, you would feel how?
That I had a right to exist.
Uh-huh. And when you feel like you have a right to exist, then you feel how?
I was imagining how I might feel.
Uh-huh.
It would really feel like utopia. It would be wonderful.
Got it. And so how did you get that deeper feeling of utopia? How did you develop that?
Probably by impressing people.
I'm imagining you went into other worlds in your head. I'm imagining that you read, I'm imagining that you wrote, I'm imagining that you went places that were utopia that wasn't your house.
My book is entirely written in poetry.
Uh-huh.
Um,
And poetry matters because?
because you have poetic license.
What gives someone poetic license?
Because of imagination, I suppose you could say that.
Yeah. So there's something, tell me, when you felt like you didn't have a right to exist, what did you do to try to make yourself feel better?
Be a little better than the average.
So, and when you were a little better than the average, then what happened?
That would give me some safety.
And when you felt that safety, then what would you do?
Probably I could express myself.
So you began expressing yourself. And when you expressed yourself, you felt how?
It was a mix. Some apprehension as to whether that expression would be accepted,
Yeah.
but there was also a deeper feeling of knowing it should be said or demonstrated or whatever.
Yeah. And how did you know it should be said?
Just deep convictions.
And did those deep convictions come from being able to sort of watch your environment and see what was required?
I think it was very observant.
Yeah, that's my sense about you. Yeah. So part of your skill, part of your special sauce, your X factor, I'm going to say, is knowing what needs to be said. That's part of your role in life.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Part of your life's development program is having the courage to say it,
I think you're right too.
right? So your genius, though, is knowing what needs to be said. Now, who's this book for?
I think on a deep, deep level, it's for people who are discouraged about love.
And it's a story about what?
It's the love story of my husband who's passed away.
How long were you married? Take a breath.
Long enough to be really in love.
Yeah. What needs to be said about love?
That you need to hang in there. It's worth it
Why?
because that is utopia.
There we go. That's what needs to be said. And I imagine that this is for largely women who are questioning whether or not to hang in there.
It is the way it just kind of evolved. It's almost a conversation. It is an entire story. So there's most books of poetry will talk about this subject and that subject and another thing, and it's disconnected. But every poem builds on the other to make the entire book.
A story.
And it's a story, and she is speaking, he is speaking, she is speaking. And I put on the app because I have a button you can push on each page, and then it's orally interpreted by the poet. So,
Cool. Good. All right. So there's a couple things I'm going to say. In terms of who needs it, without going too much deeper into this, I'm going to say that this is for women who are really questioning whether or not to stay in their marriages.
I am very fond of men,
Great.
and I think that we women often can be very brutal because men are so tough, but they have such wonderfully soft hearts
Yeah.
if they're given a chance.
So you think this is more for men?
No, I think it's for helping women to perhaps
See the man in a
and-
new light.
In a new light, and to
Yeah.
understand. But there's also an element
Yeah.
of what she goes through.
She'll hand the book off to him once she decides to stay. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. So that's what I'm going to say it's for. And I think your special sauce, your genius, is knowing what needs to be said to those women about love and how to experience utopia, the utopia you know and want to pass on to the world. Now, in order to do it, there's resources in this room. Bethany helps write books. We have a master hypnosis here who can help you break through the limiting beliefs that nobody wants it. And we have relationship experts over here in the room who know how to connect you to your audience of people that need this message. So most of the resources you need are right here in this room.
One of my great fears, to be really candid with you, as I have read through the years and this type of thing, I'm really afraid that in my poetic moment of the muse striking me, that I might say something that someone else has said before.
Probably have.
And so I checked, very carefully checked to make sure.
Uh-huh.
And the one thing that I knew I had said for sure came up, that it was a lyric of some song and whatever, but I knew it was mine.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to do with anything that might be what.
All right, so.
And I'm afraid, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm afraid that I will be criticized.
Yeah.
And
You will be.
you will be. You're a plagiarist or whatever it is.
So
I don't-
this is your path of courage right here, right? Because you will be criticized. I don't think there's been a person that's put a book into publication that hasn't been criticized, ever, right? So count on it. Now, what does that criticism mean is another
That
thing.
I'm
So
invalid.
the criticism you're scared of is I'm back to Miss X. If I'm criticized, and if I plagiarized anybody, or if this looks at all like anything that's ever been written in all of history, then I must not be authentic, and then I miss X, and I'm back where I started in childhood, right? So I can't publish this damn book,
You're right.
right? So you have to. So really, this is where we'll wrap up. The deeper purpose for me doing this work isn't just for a nifty marketing tool. It does create more effective marketing, in my opinion, but the real reason is liberation. That we get to reclaim our whole selves, including our story. And that when we really do our life's work, it puts us face to face up against that old question. That old question we spend our lives shopping to everybody else. Will you prove to me I'm authentic? How about you? How about you? How about you? Right? And when you have the courage to say, I'm willing to risk feeling inauthentic some days and being criticized, and I'm willing to embrace and love the little girl in me that still feels like Miss X. Here's the last thing I'm going to say on this. I just said this the other night for the first time. The part of us that takes on the wound, I'm Miss X, is the part of us that doesn't get nurtured or parented. Because what we do with the wounding is we hide it from people in order to get love, right? So we take the part that says, oh, I must be inauthentic, and I'm going to do my best to hide that and present this super authentic person so that I'm loved. But it also means that this part of you didn't get parented, didn't get nurtured. And so the real healing process in this opportunity around this book is to have the courage to publish it and to take this part of you that's felt like Miss X, that's inauthentic your whole life, and say, I'm here for you. I've got you. It's okay if they criticize us. I'm here. That's you really developing a new level of adulthood for the whole being in you, the young parts of you and the wise, mature parts of you that know utopia, to all be present and available. Right? Let the part of you that knows utopia publish the book and show that to the world. And let the part of you that's still scared she is Miss X, she doesn't have to present the book. That's just for you to be in relationship with.
Beautiful.
Okay? All right. Good stuff. Thank you so much. And here she's an amazing poet, FYI. Just so you know, hypnotherapy here if you need it. Book coaching right there if you need it. And Orna and Matthew, raise your hands. Orna and Matthew Walters are amazing relationship coaches that are very well established in the relationship field and might be able to help you get this message out to a wider audience. So be sure you connect with people in this room. There might be others that are appropriate connections as well, and if you are, say hello. We're going to wrap up here in just a minute. I just want to say a couple final things. So first of all, for all of you who came up here and shared your stories, thank you. Because, yeah. I care so much about storytelling. I'm a singer by training and at heart, and I'm really a storyteller. My favorite podcast is The Moth. It's these storytelling podcasts. It's so amazing. But to me, it's our stories that create our humanity. And it's when we tell our stories that we connect and we restore our humanity. And there's something about doing this work in a group that restores our humanity. So I want to really honor the people that came up here and shared their stories, because it's without you, I can talk about these philosophies all night long, but they don't come to life without stories. And it's with our stories that we see time and time again, oh my God, the training program, it's exquisite, it's perfect every single time. I've never ever met somebody who doesn't have the perfect, exquisite training program for their life's work. It doesn't happen. There is a design that's larger than our own creation, and where it comes from, you know, that's a larger conversation. But I have honor for the exquisite design of our lives, and I have a huge calling to help people take hold of that design and use it to have a bigger impact in this world, to really connect with the people that you and you alone are designed to serve in the way you're designed to serve them, and to be able to ground that in practical business tools that help you package and deliver it, so that it's not just like, oh, here's my design, but I don't know what to do with it, but that you actually have practical tools to package it and deliver it to the world. So I want to say a couple final things. One is, I'm here the third Thursday of each month. So the next one is November 17, I believe. And I would love for you to come back, love for you to bring people. This is a unique body of work. And it's a unique group of people that, that I'm really called to serve with it, right? Because I don't know anyone else in the world that does what I do. And that has packaged this in the way I've packaged it. So if you have people in LA area that you want to bring next month, please do. I'm also live streaming this now for the first time. Hello, live streamers! So I have people around the world that I've worked with over the past decade. So it's awesome to be able to share this with a wider audience around the world. And so if you have people in other parts of the country or other parts of the world that you think could use this as well, you can send them to jeffreyvandyke.com, and they can sign up there, and they'll be put on the list to be notified of the live streams and of the live events. So appreciate that. Last thing, I loved doing this day-long event I did for this group of leaders about a month ago. Pamela was there. And it was extraordinary to see these leaders go through this process in a whole day, really look at their wounding in a whole new light, have big ahas, see why they do what they do and why they're so good at it, and what more they can learn about their audience, their packaging, and their next level of expression. And so I'm going to be doing a one-day event here in this room, December 13. It's a Sunday, 10 to 6. I'm going to limit it to 12 people. So it's going to be a very intimate audience. Unlike it being a lecture, I'm really going to work with everybody in the room. When I do a VIP day, personally it's 15 grand. This event is going to be $997. So it's a really reasonable, easy way to have a deeper dive with me personally than if hiring me privately isn't necessarily where you're at financially. And there's something cool about doing it in a group where those ahas start pinging around the room. So in the morning, we're going to be looking at identifying the pattern of your wounding for everybody. Oh, this is the pattern, that's the pattern, etc. Then we're going to be looking at the public, secret, and unknown problem that your tribe shares in common with you. We're going to be looking at what your special sauce is and how to package that. Then in the afternoon, we're going to really start to develop a tribal avatar, why they need what you have, how to package your services in a way that really has you stand out uniquely in the world, like we just did with Bethany, and then what your go-to-market strategy is, and we'll probably, by the end of the day, get into some packaging of how you might want to package or repackage some of your offerings and services to bring it to the world. So if you are interested in joining me December 13 for that day, you can see Stephanie, she's right here. And if you're on the live stream and you're interested in this, I didn't really think too much about live streamers being there because I'm doing this in LA, but there's a possibility of me doing one as a virtual day too. So if you're live streaming and are interested in something like that, you can just send an email to support@jeffreyvandyke.com and we'll get in touch with you from there. So that's that for tonight. And lastly, I want to thank Prudence. It's so great to collaborate. You know, we could be doing this in some random hotel room, but instead we're in this gorgeous space in a house that does massive healing. And so it's really great to collaborate with you and be here at the Hall Center. So if you do need some work on the physical level, be sure you talk to Prudence before you go. And with that, we will say good night for now. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. All right, all right.